There's a right time to find out if you have the right insurance, and it's not when you have a fender bender or frozen pipes. No, the best time is before something goes wrong, like when you first talk to a AAA insurance agent, and they're taking the time to get to know what you need, so that if the unexpected happens to your car or home, you won't get unexpected answers. Talk to a AAA insurance agent at your local AAA store today, or visit AAA.com/insurance to learn more about AAA.
Prepare for glory!
I don't know if you got your popcorn ready. Do you got your popcorn ready?
I came out the womb, I was ready.
And he's hit the end zone for an unbelievable touchdown.
I would be honored if you played football for this team.
Throw it up above his head. They can't jump at me. Golly. Oh, they tackle him at the 40-yard line.
Who can make a play? I can. Who can make a play? I can.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast, proud members of the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast Network. You can find them at FTFPodNet on Twitter. You can find me at SportsFanaticMB on Twitter. And, of course, you can find my illustrious co-host who will be joining us live from Las Vegas here in just a minute, Mr. Dennis Bennett at Culture_Coach on Twitter. We have a ton of other great podcasts that are associated with this network, including Jim Day of FF Champs, Adam Ronis and Dr. Roto from SiriusXM, Bob Lung of the award-winning Fantasy Football Consistency Guide, Dwayne McFarland, Blake Sullivan, and a ton of others. If you want to listen to all these great podcasts for all of your one-stop shop fantasy advice, strategy, and help, go to fulltimefantasy.com. As I just mentioned, Dennis is live in Vegas. For those of you who did not follow me on Twitter, don't follow me on Twitter. I was not able to make it. My flight was canceled, and I was not able to get out, unfortunately. So Dennis is sitting there live right now in the draft room. We're going to get him on here right now. We're going to talk about some of the huge news going down with Julio and AB, and then we're going to discuss what his weekend was like in Vegas. And as I mentioned, live from Las Vegas, we have Mr. Dennis Bennett. It's been quite a couple episodes since we've been able to get you on here. Dennis, how is Vegas and how's everything going?
You know what? I don't know if I'm going to go home. I've been having, it's 102. That's the only thing I think making me want to go home is that it's 102 and I don't want to go outside because sugar melts. So, other than that, it's been fantastic. A lot of drafts going on. Some star power walking around. Eric Dickerson's been in here. Adam Ronis, Sean Childs, Bill Enright, Scott Atkins, the mastermind behind all this. Emil Kadlec. Lots of people. Lots of drafters. A lot of veterans in here. Willing to kind of show a newbie like me how to approach the high stakes a little bit. So it's been quite a great experience.
That is awesome. So we wanted to get you live here. Obviously, for those of you who follow me on Twitter, you know that I was not able to get out there. Unfortunately, my flight got canceled due to some mechanical issues Friday, and so I'm stuck here still in Texas, unfortunately. I was really hoping to get out there and get to experience all of this with you, but I know that you're representing us well out there, so hopefully we will both get invited again next year as well, and that we can both attend that as well as the Midwest Expo. But we wanted to get on here and talk about obviously all of the news that has come out here in the past 24 hours. Today alone has been a crazy day if you're following all the AB news. So let's go ahead and jump right into that, and then we're going to spend the rest of our time talking about the whole Vegas experience and what it's been like for you in those drafts.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
So let's start with the
AB stuff. All right, go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was going to start with Julio first because that's the easy one. Right. I figure let's go ahead and knock Julio out. That way we can spend probably what feels like an hour talking about AB, which I'm honestly tired of talking about, because me and Matt have been addressing that a lot here the past couple episodes. Julio gets a new deal. I believe it was, I just had it up on my phone and I lost it.
3-year, $66 million extension.
All right, so I'll just jump right in.
$64 million guaranteed.
$64 million guaranteed, you said?
Yep.
All right, so I'm just going to get your thoughts on it first. You're out there with all the big ballers in Vegas. What are all you guys talking about? What is everyone's thoughts out there about Julio Jones and this extension?
Well, I think a lot of the reaction has been, it's in stark contrast to the way that Antonio Brown has gone about things. Julio kept coming to work. He didn't create a problem. Kept building the relationship with his owner. And, he's in a situation where he can finish out his career there and be a Hall of Famer. Julio Jones is an exceptional wide receiver, not only from a fantasy standpoint, but from a professional football standpoint. And it kind of gives people, he was hinting a little bit that he might be willing to, I don't want to say be disruptive, but he was kind of saying, we kind of need to get this taken care of and not let it linger on. And Arthur Blank did that. The agents worked together and they got everything done. And it's reassuring for those that own Julio Jones shares.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about this a little bit on Thursday's episode. Matt and I did. I didn't think that I thought it was kind of much to do about nothing. We had already seen Arthur Blank come out just a couple days ago and said they were really close to getting the deal done. So I think Julio coming out and saying that was more of him just trying to push it toward that quicker and be like, hey, let's get this done now before the first game starts. Everybody, it seemed like, kind of thought this deal was going to get done, and obviously, as you just mentioned, in my opinion, I'd imagine, as you just stated yours and a lot of others, he went about it the right way. He showed up. He did his job. He continues to produce on the field, and that's why he continues to get paid as one of the best wide receivers in the game. In fact, the contract he had before he signed this one had him paid as the 17th highest wide receiver, I believe, in the league, which is obviously not fair to him because you could argue he's one of the top three. So now he gets that money, and he is right up there. Really, fantasy-wise, that doesn't affect anything. We know he's getting paid. He's still an elite wide receiver, so we're good there. Nothing really to address on the fantasy side. So let's go ahead and jump into the Antonio Brown news. So when we last left it off with me and Matt, none of this other stuff had really come out. We had already heard about the fight with Mike Mayock, and there was talks about them suspending him, but that had not happened yet. Then it came out that they were not going to suspend him. John Gruden said that he will play Monday night. Then they fined him, and with that voided his guaranteed money, which meant that Antonio Brown had to show up and actually play on the field to earn his contract. Instead of his contract being guaranteed the $29 million, he would earn that contract still, but he would have to play. He did lose out on some of the incentives. He pretty much came out then on Instagram and said, release me. He did not want to be a Raider anymore. They obliged him with that request about 2 hours later, at which point it felt like probably 3 hours later, he signs a 1-year deal with the New England Patriots worth $9 million, can get up to $15 million with incentives. He cannot play tomorrow night against the Patriots or Sunday night, depending on when you guys listen to that, so it could be tonight, obviously. Cannot play with them due to them letting him go after the Thursday game. So the first game that he will actually be able to play in is week 2, which I'd imagine he will. Antonio Brown has already said his feet are fine. He was supposed to play Monday night with the Raiders, so I imagine after this 1-week sit-out, he will be on the field with the Patriots. Again, me and Matt have been talking about this for the past couple days. I am, in all honesty, sick of it, as some of you who have seen, if you're following me on Twitter, the stuff I've been putting out there. So, Dennis, what's the thoughts? I mean, you guys are there in Vegas where Oakland is moving to next year. What's all the talk been about this AB drama and the way that it's unfolded today?
Well, it was interesting to watch the sentiment towards the his ADP. This morning when I first came into the draft room, they were talking about, when would you take him in the 4th round? Would you take him in the 5th round? He's been cut. What's going to happen? In the 2 drafts, the one draft I was in, he ended up going at the 211. And in the draft next to us, he went at the 302, or 301 or 302. So he kind of stayed right around where his ADP has been, which has been the end of the second, beginning of the third. But it had the sentiment earlier in the day was that people weren't going to be willing to take a chance on him until probably the fourth or fifth round. I have him on one of my high stakes teams I drafted out here, and I took him at the 201 through a little bit of confusion, but I kept him. And I think the first time he ends up having a game where he gets 2 targets, he's going to end up being late for practice and maybe missing practice, and I don't expect this to end well either.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. So let's talk about the fantasy side first, and I'm honestly not sure that this is a great landing spot for him. Obviously, coming into New England, everybody has high hopes because it is one of the better offenses in the league. You have one of the greatest coaches along with one of the greatest quarterbacks. But you also have Julian Edelman and Josh Gordon there. N'Keal Harry when he comes back, assuming Antonio Brown lasts that long. You got James White out of the backfield. And as we have talked about many a times, New England has really looked like they're trying to move toward a more run-heavy offense. So you have likely what's going to be a more Sony Michel and Damian Harris dominated game plan every single week, which means Antonio Brown is not going to get the targets we thought he was going to get in Oakland or when he was in Pittsburgh. So he may only get 5 targets a game now compared to the double digits he was likely going to get in Oakland and what he was getting in Pittsburgh. So what do you think this means for him fantasy-wise? Because, I'll just throw up the show bet that we made back in the offseason. We had Mr. Brandon Bangley and Kyle Matthew on with us, and all 3 of you guys said that you thought Amari Cooper would have a better season than Antonio Brown at the time, who was still, or was an Oakland Raider. He had just kind of come over to the Oakland Raiders, obviously, and I had gone the other way. I feel like this is an easy win for the 3 of you now in this one because I don't see there's any way Antonio Brown produces as a top, I would almost say top wide receiver 2. I feel like he's going to be finishing in the middle tier of wide receiver 2s now, landing here with the group of weapons that they have here. What are your thoughts on him and his fantasy output, assuming that he does spend the entire year there in New England?
Well, I don't think it's fair to say that it's an easy win for us on the bet now because it was always an easy win for us on the bet.
Okay.
So, no, I agree with you. I think that his target share, Julian Edelman is still going to get. He's the guy that's going to lead that team in targets as long as he stays healthy. Does this give the Patriots exceptional wide receiver depth? I think so. Who is going to be the expendable player? And it's likely going to be Demaryius Thomas, I think.
Yeah.
That ends up getting shown the door. So, Josh Gordon is going to play the role Josh Gordon is always going to play, which is the big deep threat that can high point the ball. The 50% catch rate on 110 targets, 120 targets, 55, 60% maybe. So I think Josh Gordon's in for his 55 to 70 receptions and good touchdown rate. Julian Edelman is he's gonna be the PPR guy. He's gonna rack up points and yards and receptions. That's the role he plays on that team, and he's exceptional at it. I don't think he's a Hall of Famer like a lot of people want to claim, but I think for right now, Edelman is great. Does that mean where does Antonio fit now? He's gonna then he'll slot in for in the somewhere around the 3rd or 4th in the pecking order for targets. James White will still probably get his, it seems. And if the team is running more with Sony Michel, now all of a sudden the targets become fewer and further between. So I think it could end up being a frustrating season for him as he tries to rehab his stock.
Yeah.
So I think, again, like I said earlier, I think he's going to really struggle because it's not about him, and the Patriots are about team, and he's going to try to fit in, and it's going to ultimately backfire for him because he can't take it.
Yeah, so I think the only one that it doesn't affect is probably Julian Edelman, because we've seen that's Tom's guy. We know Bill has a lot of respect for him as well. I think Julian Edelman, for the most part, fantasy stock-wise, is fine, but I do think this affects Antonio Brown and Josh Gordon. I do think that they're likely going to try and scheme a little bit more to Antonio Brown because he is a Hall of Fame wide receiver. Now, Josh Gordon, you might be able to argue, has the athletic talent to be right there with Antonio Brown, but he has yet to stay on the field and prove what Antonio Brown has. So I could see at some point in time Antonio Brown kind of becoming the second option in this offense and kind of, in a way, phasing Josh Gordon out, but I still don't think that produces or puts him back up to a top 12 wide receiver. In fact, I also think this might drop Julian's a little bit. Some people thinking he had a chance to be that right in the bottom end, top 12, maybe top 15 wide receiver based on the targets he would get and being opposite Josh Gordon. I think that does hurt him a little bit, actually, having Antonio Brown there. The one person I would say gives a huge stock up to is Sony Michel. And more to a point that you have been talking about all season long, and that you think they're going to ride him this season, and especially when they get into the red zone. Well, think about the fact that now, when they go three wide, you're going to have Antonio Brown, Julian Edelman, and Josh Gordon out there on the field. That's going to open up some running lanes because teams are not going to take those three wide receivers lightly. And if you get James White and Sony Michel on the field at the same time, you know one linebacker knows they're going to have to cover James White, or possibly a slot cornerback moving somebody else onto one of the other wide receivers. So I think Sony Michel is in for a huge year this year, and a guy that you could get in the 4th or 5th round in a lot of redraft leagues or later. I know in one league I got him in the 6th round. That could end up being a steal now in all the drafts with the addition there of Antonio Brown.
Yeah. I think it's gonna. I think the consistency is going to be the issue. I think it'll be inconsistent between Brown, White, and Gordon, and that might ultimately work itself out. Hopefully, it's not at the expense of Josh Gordon's mental and sobriety. Help. But I think Antonio Brown. I don't know. I don't expect it to work out well, and I didn't want him on this team that I have him on, but I have him now, and it's a no-trade league, and I'm certainly not going to cut him.
Right. Yeah, I think just from that perspective, right now, just speaking because they play tomorrow night, obviously, again, as I mentioned, Antonio Brown can't play. But say come week 2, and we'll obviously, we're not getting a chance to do any game previews this week. We were hoping to do it with both of us in Vegas, but again, that unfortunately fell through for me on my end. So we will definitely pick that up, me and Dennis, starting next week. But I would say going into that even, the only people I would feel really comfortable playing right now would be Sony Michel and Julian Edelman on the Patriots, outside of Tom Brady, if you want to play him at quarterback. But I think I need to see what they're going to do with AB before I'd start him. If you want to throw him in as maybe a flex spot guy, then I could see it, because you obviously he one play and he's gone to the house. But yeah, I'm right there with you. He's someone I've avoided all offseason anyways, and so not having him anywhere has been good for me. And I know you got him in one spot there, and then we'll just jump right into that. We'll cut the breaking news here. I feel like that's kind of all the analysis we can give on Antonio Brown now. So let's go in and let's just talk about everything Vegas.
This has been a phenomenal experience. Scott Atkins at Full-Time Fantasy has put together, in the Fantasy Football World Championships, put together a great event, and it's been going on since 2012. And he does it the right way. It's exciting to have our podcast associated with his organization.
Yeah.
There's been just nonstop drafting going on since Thursday. They had drafts going. Actually, I think Wednesday night was the first draft, and they have more drafts tomorrow, and I think maybe even Monday. And so it's the atmospheres. You've got all these guys in this big ballroom. There's tables of 12 people, and they call him the commissioner, but he's setting up. You're making the picks. Somebody's putting the stickers on the boards, and the commissioner is running the timer and entering them on your team as you go along. And so you want to make sure you've done your prep. I've had my computer with me the whole time, so I've got my FTF ADP out and my ranking list. And, it's my first foray into higher stakes fantasy football. And the one thing that I heard by most people is that you'll see people reaching because they want their guy.
Right.
And so there were some times that I just went and got my guy. I thought, especially because in the 2 drafts I did, I picked in the 11th spot on one and the 12th spot on the other. So I was at the end. So there was going to be a 20 or 22 pick run before I got a chance to pick again. So there were times I just went ahead and took my guy. Went for it.
So who was you being there, picking in the 11 and 12 spot? Who's a couple of the guys that did? Is there anybody you ended up with on both teams? Like who's one of those guys you reached for to make sure you could get on both of those teams?
Oddly, I don't know that I reached for them, but I ended up with Frank Gore on both teams.
Okay.
And the other person I have on both teams is Terry McLaurin.
I like it.
So, Gore was interesting. I took him, in the 15th round in both leagues. And it was one of those things where I already had, he was my RB6 today, and 1, 2, my RB5 yesterday. So, I feel like that running back situation in Buffalo, I want to buy into Devin Singletary, but I feel like Frank Gore is going to have a role. He's going to get that early down work, some of that short yardage work. I feel like he's in for, 175 carries, 800 yards kind of year. That's just kind of what he does at this point in his career, in part because he stays healthy. TJ Yeldon's a passing down back, and Devin Singletary is kind of a mix between the two of them. And so I think they're going to run with the committee until somebody expresses until one of the backs really says, this is my job and I'm taking it and I'm keeping it. We know that's not going to be TJ Yeldon. And I think at this point in his career, we know it's not going to be Frank Gore. Mm-hmm. So it may be Devin Singletary. He might just be dynamic enough, but he's 5'8 and 5'7", 5'8", and 200 pounds. So I feel like the natural tendency will be to lighten the load for him.
All right, so you mentioned...
Terry...
Oh, sorry, go ahead. No, I'll wait a minute and ask my question. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Terry McLaurin, I picked him late in both drafts, in the 18th round in one and the 20th round in the other. So today, when I picked him in the 20th round, I was really leaning towards Brashad Perryman. Mm-hmm. And it was my wide receiver 8, McLaurin is today. And I was leaning towards Brashad Perryman because he's established. I think he's got a clear role as the number 3 in Tampa, and they're going to throw the ball a lot. And then I thought to myself, but Terry McLaurin has the chance to be the number 1 wide receiver in Washington, whereas Brashad Perryman is always going to be the number 3 wide receiver in Tampa. And so I took the shot on McLaurin both times and took him late with the opportunity to become the number 1 on a team that's going to have to play from behind, much like Tampa Bay is. So for me, it was worth the gamble.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Me being a Buckeye fan that I am, I think McLaurin is going to have a great year, especially in a wide receiver core that is depleted of wide receivers. That was, in all honesty, one of the rumored destinations AB might end up at earlier before the Patriots really kind of became the place he was going to go. So my question was obviously, it sounds like to me that is this a best ball league? You had talked about there's no trades or anything like that. Are you allowed to pick people up off the waiver wire? Is it once you've drafted, that's the team you have, the best players get plugged in every week? And what are the lineup restrictions and everything that's set up with the league?
No, it's not best ball.
Okay.
But there is waivers. There's just not any trading. So you have to set your lineup each week, make sure your guys are in. You've got a couple days each week where you can do waivers. And on both teams, I obviously only drafted one defense, only drafted one kicker. And today I only drafted one tight end. So I'm going to have to play the waiver wire a little bit and see how that shakes out.
And how many rounds is it?
20.
20. Okay, gotcha. All right, so what are is it just regular starting lineup as in one quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, flex, all that good stuff, or they mix it up, more flexes, more wide receivers?
No, it's 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 2 flexes, I believe.
Okay. Awesome. All right.
Could be 3 wide receivers, 1 flex. Some of the full-time fantasies are, some of them have 2 and 3, and some of 2-3-1. Some are 2-2-2.
Gotcha. All right. So let's. You said you did your first draft yesterday around 8 p.m. That's when we were supposed to obviously do our podcast. We were going to be recording live as you were doing that and talking about it. So give us a rundown of your team. What did your team end up with, and then just kind of give us your thought process as you were going through some of the picks and the guys that you got.
So there was a little confusion at the beginning of this, and so I ended up getting auto-picked with Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown at the 112 and 201. Well, Bell was the guy I was trying to draft. I was trying to draft James Conner, who actually went at the 202. Like I said, I'm not buying into Antonio Brown. I don't care where he goes. I don't think there's going to be a resurgence. And the effect of that then became I sort of, for the next few rounds, I felt like I needed to have a little bit more upside or volume. So I ended up at the 312. I went with Kenny Golladay. He's the stud, the number 1 in Detroit. Turned around and followed him up with Julian Edelman. Obviously, this was before they signed Brown, but expecting that Edelman was going to get a lot of targets and push for 100 receptions. And then I went ahead and went early for a big upside quarterback in the 5th. I took Deshaun Watson. And I felt like that was a little out of character for me. I don't really go for the quarterback that early. But in this case, I felt, because of the Brown situation on my team, that I needed to look at one position and just see if I could get one of the top players at that position at this point. And Watson was the guy. The top 3 tight ends were gone. And it needed to be the quarterback. So I went ahead and grabbed Deshaun Watson in the 5th, followed him up with Mark Ingram in the 6th, another high-volume guy, or expected high-volume guy. Corey Davis, in the 7th, I just felt like that was too good a value to pass up. And I then, after Thursday night's game, the Green Bay-Chicago game, watching how they used Tariq Cohen, I went ahead and took a shot at Cohen. I can play him as flex play or in a bye week running back. And if he's going to get 10 targets a game, that can be very productive for me. And then here's the shot, the one that's going to shock you the most, I think.
All right.
In the what round was that? The ninth round, took DK Metcalf.
Wow. Okay. I like it. Bold.
Now, again, I was looking at this team going, I need to be able to make up some points. I need some explosiveness. Hopefully he settles into a prominent role. He's going to be the starter there in Seattle. And hopefully he gets a consistent target volume. And since it's likely going to be a deep ball target volume, there should be ample room for yardage and touchdowns, even though he's going to probably not have the number of targets I would normally want out of, a top 5 wide receiver. I did handcuff Ty Montgomery with Le'Veon Bell, wrapped up my wide receivers with Zay Jones, my guy Preston Williams, McLaurin, and then took a shot on John Ross in the 20th round. I was like, might as well. I grabbed a second quarterback in Dak Prescott. I am a little thin on running back on this team. I did only take 4 running backs. with Bell, Ingram, or I took 5, Bell, Ingram, Cohen, Montgomery, and Frank Gore. So that might end up biting me in the ass. But I think I've got a pretty solid team the rest of the way. Matt Bryan, a kicker, the Dallas Cowboys defense.
Okay.
I thought about Jacksonville's defense, but I just couldn't see taking Jacksonville with them playing Kansas City week 1. I would have had to have taken the second defense, in my opinion. So I just passed. Somebody else take 2 defenses.
All right. So then, how did your second draft play out?
Now the second draft, I was fully present. From the 11th spot, and I debated I kind of looked at it from the standpoint of, do I want to go wide receiver, running back, or do I want to go wide receiver? I've done some drafts, and I've started off running back heavy in the back half of the draft in one of the home leagues we have up there in Columbus, the Ohio Fantasy Football Analyst League. I started my first 4 rounds with running backs from the 9 spot. But here out of the 11th, I went Juju and followed him up with Tyreek Hill.
Okay.
I'm like, I'm going to take two guys from 2 of the best offenses in the league. No, I'm not going to be able to get Mahomes probably. Now, I could have, but I gambled, and so I didn't get Mahomes. And then I went with Josh Jacobs at 311. Running backs were starting to get thin, and I thought, my thinking is, with AB gone, some of the targets are going to need to go to the running back a little heavier. Jalen Richard kind of fills that role, but I think that from a snap perspective, I feel like Josh Jacobs is going to be given the opportunity. I'm not as high on him as a lot of people, but I thought, let's take the shot. So I took Jacobs at 311. Over Mahomes, my plan was to go Jacobs at the 311 and Mahomes at the 402. And then the guy after me took Mahomes at 312. So I ended up going Sony Michel. I love the touchdown upside with Michel. I think he's gonna. He's looking at a 15 touchdown season.
Yeah.
It's going to be a big year for him. I rounded out my running backs in this league, went a little more running back heavy, went Duke Johnson, and then with my next one in the, which round was that? In the 10th round, I did a my guy pick, took a shot and grabbed Dario Gumbawale.
Okay.
I don't know what's going to happen there. They've talked about him being the best pass catcher on the team. I don't expect that he's going to become this 3-down amazing back. If you watched him when he was at Wisconsin, he's not the fastest guy. He's got good size. He is a good pass catcher, and he's an okay runner. So he's going to get some opportunity, I think, just based on what the running back situation is in Tampa. That's going to be very fluid, but he could be the one, because of his pass catching ability, to get the most consistent snaps. Followed that up, I went ahead and grabbed Carlos Hyde and handcuffed him with Duke Johnson. I thought, what the hell? It's I don't know what's going to happen there either, but I know Houston's got a pretty powerful offense. They could end up in some games where they're grinding out the clock and Hyde gets a lot of carries. Finished up with Frank Gore, and then I grabbed Darwin Thompson.
Wow, okay.
In the draft yesterday, he went undrafted. People are so down now because this is redraft. Mm-hmm. It's not dynasty, and everybody's so sure. So many people are so sure that it's going to be LaShawn McCoy and Damian Williams, and in the 16th round, I went ahead and grabbed Darwin Thompson. I figure, it only takes, he's shown enough that it only takes somebody to get dinged up one time or to be unproductive one time for him to possibly get a shot. And who knows, he could grab that job and become the leader of the 3. Mm-hmm. wide receiver wise, I started off with Juju and Hill. And then I went MVS, Gallup, Traquan Smith, Marquise Brown. Devin Funchess is still the starter in Indianapolis. And so I'm like, in the 19th round, why the hell not? And finished out in the 20th with Terry McLaurin, who could be the number one on the Redskins as they play from behind a lot. Tight end, I went with Evan Ingram, grabbed him in the 6th round. Didn't grab a backup. I feel like he's going to get a lot of volume this year. There's no OBJ there. Sterling Shepard is the wide receiver, and Golden Tate is out for 4 weeks with suspension. So he's going to have a lot of opportunity, I think. Went ahead and I stacked grabbed 2 quarterbacks and stacked both of them. Grabbed Aaron Rodgers in the 9th and Big Ben in the 14th.
Okay.
So, I kind of tried to feel like I insulated my quarterback situation a little bit. It's going to be up in the air. It's going to involve me picking the right people to play, I think, after about the first 6 rounds. Then it's going to get a little murky trying to pick the right flex guys.
Yeah, I can see that. How, man, I just had a question I wanted to ask you, and it just jumped completely out of my head. Oh, the waivers. Is it blind bids?
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. All right, so that makes sense. That is awesome.
So in this draft, I did get sniped a couple times. I mentioned earlier getting sniped on Patrick Mahomes. So the person picking in the 12th spot, they nailed me a couple of other times too. So when I took Duke, I was weighing taking Duke, and Darius Geis and Jarvis Landry. So I took Duke, and then Geis and Landry went in the next 2 picks.
Oh.
I felt comfortable choosing Duke over Geis. When I did that, my plan was to take Landry at the next pick.
Uh-huh.
I was looking for a Baker Mayfield, Jarvis Landry stack there.
I gotcha.
Mayfield ended up going. So I was looking to take Baker Mayfield to stack him with Landry.
Yeah.
Even though Landry got taken, I still was targeting Mayfield. But he went around before I was going to take him. So I got a little sniped there. And then we had our buddy Blake Sullivan from the Hot Take Podcast. Was in this draft with me. And he was picking out of the 4 spot. And last night we were talking after the draft, and I shared with him my love for Preston Williams.
Uh-huh.
And I was really a little bit disappointed to watch Blake snipe me in the 14th round on Preston Williams. So damn you, Blake. When he did it, everybody laughed because I was sitting here giving him the 1-finger salute when he did it. And then I was surprised, too. My guy, Quadri Allison, went... where'd Allison go? He went in the 14th round.
Oh, okay.
So I ended up not getting him in either draft. I wasn't really aiming for him last night. In this draft, I was looking at my running back options, and he was on my list. So I do like my teams. I'm not thrilled about having Brown and Edelman both. I'm not thrilled about having Brown at all, but especially not thrilled about having him and Edelman on the same team.
Right.
I don't expect there's going to be much I can do at that level on the waiver wire. We're not going to find a wide receiver 1 or top 15 wide receiver on the waiver wire. I don't expect. So I'm a little chapped about that. So we'll see how it plays out. I'm looking forward to this league and kind of getting to know. I enjoy the high stakes atmosphere that goes on out here.
Uh-huh.
Everybody is really, imagine your favorite home draft.
Yeah.
Your home league draft, and then imagine it like 20 times over 4 days. It's kind of what this experience is like. There's catering, there's booze. Not that I drink, but there's Diet Coke and coffee for me. all kinds of draft boards from completed drafts up everywhere. Sports Illustrated covers. Like I said, we got Bill Enright from Sports Illustrated here, and he's been doing interviews. At the watch party on Thursday night, UNLV newspaper was here, our news station was here, and they were doing interviews. So that was pretty sweet. It's just been the environment. It's the kind of event that a sports nut wants to go to.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's awesome, and thanks for just continually rubbing it in this entire time. You're making me feel so much better.
It can't be any worse than the Ronald Jones call.
It can, actually, because, at least the Ronald Jones call, I didn't have anything riding on it. This is a whole mess. Like, I don't want to get into it because it's just going to make me more upset, but, like, some of the things that have happened after that have just made everything 10 times worse. So, but we'll discuss that another time. I appreciate you jumping on with me while you were out there, man. Like I said, I really wish I could be there with you. It would have been 10 times more fun to actually get to be there with you and do this live in these draft rooms while this was all going on. So I hate that we did not get a chance to do that, but there's definitely next year I'll quit my job if I have to, because I want to be there for that Thursday night kickoff party that you were talking about, because it sounds like it was a lot of fun, and having a chance to see Eric Dickerson and everything like that would have been awesome. But definitely have a safe flight back. Enjoy tomorrow, the first full Sunday slate of NFL football, and we will talk again here coming up, my friend. Have a good one.
Right on.
Prepare for glory!
I don't know if you got your popcorn ready. Do you got your popcorn ready? I came out the womb, I was ready. And he's in the end zone for an unbelievable touchdown.
I would be honored if you played football for this team.
Throw it up above his head. They can't jump with me. Golly. Oh, they tackle him at the 40-yard line.
Who can make a play? I can. Who can make a play? I can.
There's a right time to find out if you have the right insurance. And it's not when you have a fender bender or frozen pipes. No, the best time is before something goes wrong. Like when you first talk to a AAA insurance agent, and they're taking the time to get to know what you need, so that if the unexpected happens to your car or home, you won't get unexpected answers. Talk to a AAA insurance agent at your local AAA store today, or visit AAA.com/insurance to learn more about AAA. There's a right time to find out if you have the right insurance. And it's not when you have a fender bender or frozen pipes. No, the best time is before something goes wrong. Like when you first talk to a AAA insurance agent, and they're taking the time to get to know what you need, so that if the unexpected happens to your car or home, you won't get unexpected answers. Talk to a AAA insurance agent at your local AAA store today, or visit AAA.com/insurance to learn more about AAA.